Good evening and welcome to a very special edition of Beyond the Politics. I'm your host, Paul Martin. Joining me as always, my co-host, regular columnist for the Belleville Intelligencer, Colin McCaw.
Thank you. Thanks for the introduction, Paul.
And this show will be a little bit different from our regular format in that we'll be talking for most of the show about a very big loss in our local community. And joining us in our first segment to talk about that, someone who worked with the late, great Pat Culhane very regularly, Belleville Councillor Kelly McCaw. Kelly, thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Paul. Thank you.
As you know by now, the Quinte region as a whole has lost a giant in terms of community activism, quality personal health care, and civic engagement. Earlier this month, Pat Culhane passed away suddenly. She had had 2 full terms and was in the middle of her 3rd term as a councillor, but many others remember her from her 50 years of providing nursing expertise and care to people at Quinte Healthcare, including times in the emergency and pediatric departments. Someone who always supported local causes. Pat was someone who cared, no matter what part of her life she touched you in. And so we're going to spend most of our program tonight talking about that loss, which the Quinte region is still coming to grips with. We'll start the show off with some words from family, which is what mattered to Pat most. So we'll spend a few moments now and listen to a message recorded earlier this week from her sister, Anne.
My sister. How do you talk about my sister? She was a mother, a sister, a cousin, a nurse, a friend, and a strong advocate for Belleville citizens. Challenging at times, stubborn as can be, and wise and so wonderful.
So Kelly, those words were recorded shortly after the service that was held, the drive-by service this past weekend. So tell us what that was like. Obviously there was a large turnout, respectful and properly socially distanced as we are around the table today, but certainly showed just a microcosm of the support that Pat had in the community.
It was phenomenal, and it's exactly what I suspected. And I'm sure there would have been plenty more had it not been for COVID. I think a few touching moments there when some of her nurse colleagues showed up with all of their nurse caps on, and they were there waving her family on as they went by. We had members of the Quinte Humane Society, they were there holding up their farewell board to Pat. So those are a few of the community organizations that she was involved with, obviously at the Quinte Healthcare, but also the Humane Society. So it was really touching. It was interesting, and I loved how that actually came together.
Well, we'll talk about many aspects of Pat's life, but the area that many people would know her from the most over the past 10 years is her time on council. After the meeting that was held just a couple of days ago, Mayor Mitch Panchuk recorded this message talking about Pat.
It's been a tough last couple of weeks for Belleville City Council as we have processed the information of the death of Pat Culhane, our colleague here on Belleville City Council. And, this week we were able to say goodbye as a group to her family. I always remember Pat Culhane as someone who fought for those who she felt needed a voice, that they needed their point of view, they needed their interests represented, and she felt that her job as a city councillor was to give voice to their concerns. And she was a fighter. One of the stories I always tell about Pat is that she was always battling somebody for something which she felt was unfair or unjust. And I used to tell the staff in my office, as long as she doesn't have her sights trained on me, that was a good day, and that we should be, we should be happy, because she was tenacious when she went after something. But Pat always had her heart in the right place. She always wanted to make things better, and she did, not just as a nurse for so many years, but also as a city councillor. We're lucky to have had her serve our community, and we will miss her. And certainly our condolences go not just to her family, which obviously they knew her the best, but the entire community, because so many of us are feeling difficult loss because of the death of Pat Culhane.
What kind of emotions have you been going through for that period, and especially to look at the chair and see that she's not in it? So that had to be hard.
So for the first day, it hadn't sunk in. It had been less than 24 hours. And, the mayor was really kind. He called because he knew, he called to let me know, I don't want you to be in shock, but something's happened. And he, kept me informed, as did her family. Her one brother contacted me as well. And, so it was fairly new, and, you're in shock at the first meeting. But as it sunk in further, you know, we had the tribute, the drive-by, you know, we went to the cemetery, and then when we had to give her, you know, take her belongings off the seat. And, you know, I really appreciated the funny stories that people had. They brought the saran wrap out. And, you know, that's funny, but it's not, because she would take that. She would wrap food up. She would run out in Market Square and try to find someone hungry and give her the food. But to watch...
A close friend of Pat for more than 20 years is someone who worked with her at QHC, and we'll now hear this message recorded by her friend Joanne.
Hi, my name is Joanne Dodds. I want to talk today about my relationship, my working relationship, my friend relationship with Pat Culhane. I met Pat initially in the early 80s. Once I got hired at Quinte Healthcare, Belleville General Site. I worked on the 7th floor, which at that time was a medical floor. As a friend, she was always very caring, very giving, always involved you in her life and in her family.
So at this time, I'd like to raise the thermos to Pat and sip for a little bit, and it only can be a little bit because it's not water. This is for Pat. God bless, and we will miss Pat tremendously.
For our friend Pat Culhane, and I hope I don't make a mess of it.
This show, of course, is talk about Pat. Now you're at a very moving musical show. I didn't know you played. That was one of the things I learned.
I try. But, yeah, it was...
So what made that the right way to honor her? I mean, you were a close friend, you went out to events together, you share lineage. When you were thinking about what to do to honor her at the meeting just 2 days ago, what made that the thing that really jumped out for you?
You know, I was thinking about it. Mayor Panchuk told us that we each could take as much time as we wanted to pay our respects and make some comments about Councillor Culhane. And I went to her home in May. I think it was May the 17th. It was her 73rd birthday. And I wanted to do something special for her. And I have a leprechaun suit that I wear when I'm involved at the Gleaners Food Bank for Shamrocks on the Wall. And I said to my daughter, I'm thinking of going to Culhane's. I'll put the suit on and I'll play the violin Happy Birthday. So my daughter Taylor was home from university, so we went, and Pat was talking to a previous guest tonight that we heard from, Joanne, I believe, her good friend. And I knocked on the door and my daughter taped it, and Pat said that that was the best gift that she's ever had. And I think it's been viewed 10 or 15,000 times. People were sharing it. And I was asked last week to put it back on my Facebook page. Pat had it at hers. And we were good friends the last few years. We knew each other prior to that. But after that, every time I went to her house, she would say, did you bring the violin? Did you bring the violin? Play me a song. And it was around this time last year, Pat and her family, her sister Ann, and all the Culhanes organized at Pat's home a kitchen party. And their brother Michael and his wife Ann, and my brother Mike's a well-known musician in this area, taught music for years at St. Michael's and Nicholson, and he knew Ann. And there was their connection, and we had a great meal, lots of laughs, and Mike and I played music in the living room at Pat's house. So when I was thinking about my final comments to Pat, I looked at her as a really connected person to her family. And she was like the quarterback to the Culhanes, and that's no disrespect to the other 8, but she really was the quarterback. And I'm from a family of 11. So we had that connection. And I know my siblings, there's 1 or 2 that the rest of us will lean on or ask for support or advice. And sometimes you'll get advice that you don't always like. But Pat and I had that connection.
It's a great place for us to finish.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sean Kelly.
Well, thank you.
Remembering Pat Culhane here on Beyond the Politics.
Thank you.